Greetings and salutations, my dear audience. This is Joe St. Egg Benedictus just coming at you with part 3 of a D&D tutorial, basics for people who want to get into D&D and really take it back to a real basic level. I got into Dungeons & Dragons over a year ago. My family and I, we have a lot of fun. It's a role-playing game. For those of you who might be a little skeptical of it, just remember when you used to play make-believe when you were small, Cops and Robbers. Basically, this is the same thing, role-playing. Only it's a little more structured for big people, and it's a lot more fun. I want to give a shout out to my pal Mike and to all the visionaries and mystics out there. Thank you for joining us. I'm also here with the Dungeons and Dragons expert in my household, Sister Saint. Say hello, Sister Saint.
Hello, Sister Saint.
So what we're going to talk about in part 3 is character building. First video, part 1, is really a philosophy of gaming, just to orient you to how to play, a good reason to play. For those of you who have conscientious differences with it, I kind of explain that there's a lot more danger in playing Monopoly because you don't see anybody like making spells anywhere, but you see people buying toilet paper up when there's a crisis, and a lot more people play Monopoly who are buying a lot of gas right now. So this game is a lot more innocuous than Christians have let on. The second part was about just the basics of the game, just the materials of the game, plus dice, and really a bit of an introduction to gameplay at a very basic level of just orienting you to how the story is driven. It's a very story-driven, character-driven kind of game, role-playing, where it's a lot like make-believe. You know, when you used to play Cops and Robbers, maybe somebody played a robber and you were a cop, you would make up the game as you go along. And although a game master, the person who's in charge of putting all this together for any particular game, knows how you're going to get from point A to point B, the characters who play with you, or your players, help build the world out and inform the nuances and the details of the game. The game master gives the world, gives the situation, brings the characters on a journey, the players on a journey to some conflict and to some reward or sense of failure or whatever. But it's the players in the game that you play with, people whom you play with, that fill out the details. But everyone who comes to the table needs to have a character. The Game Master doesn't have a character. The Game Master plays the bad guys. The Game Master plays what we call non-playing characters, NPCs. But for players coming to the table, not the Game Master, they need characters. So today, in this session, we're talking about character building from a very basic level. And one of the things we're going to talk about is not only character building, but if you don't like the elves and the dragons and the gnomes and the what's another character?
Tieflings.
Yeah, weird characters, and because you have some conscientious objection to the game, if you want to use the Star Trek universe, you can be a Borg and a Captain Picard and a Counselor Troy and a Klingon. You know, so you can use, you can translate the characters into fanciful characters. And if you watch my previous videos, I talk about how you can modify the game. These are only tools and resources to help you and your family get into a game and spend some time together and have a little fun. Now, these two books come with what we call the starter set that you can buy anywhere. It's the starter rulebook. Okay, we went through it a little bit in previous videos, and a storybook. It helps you set up a world, and it's for beginners to kind of get into a world and to play. The downside of the starter book is it does not inform you of characters. So what you have to do is you either have to get a player handbook or go online to build characters. I think that's a real weakness in the starter book. I think the starter book should have a basic book for characters, but they don't. So let me show you in the player's handbook what I mean by characters. We're going to go to the contents, okay? When you create a character, you have to choose, the first thing you have to choose is a race. It can be a dwarf, an elf, a human,
NASCAR.
Dragonborn, a half-elf, orc, tiefling, a what?
NASCAR.
A NASCAR? If you're playing...
Because race.
Oh, yeah. If you're playing cars, and you want to be a Lightning McQueen, that would be a race. That would be a NASCAR. And then the second thing you have to choose is a class. A barbarian, a bard, a cleric, for those of you who are religious types. Druid, fighter, monks, rangers, rogues. Now, let's say you don't like the Dungeons and Dragons thing. You're going to translate this into a much more safer gameplay like Star Trek, and you want to be, say, Worf, on the Next Generation. You'd probably choose, for instance, a dwarf or a dragonborn. Use those qualities of that race, apply it to the Klingon, and then you'd probably choose a barbarian because Klingons are barbarians. So you would translate a Dragonborn barbarian into a Klingon security officer. Or if you're playing Elsa in Frozen, you might choose a human sorcerer or a human bard or cleric. Well, Elsa would be more of a sorcerer, whereas Anna would be more of a bard or a cleric. So you translate those as a game master or as a character, depending on the world that your game master is going to choose. Now, what happens if you don't want to spend $50 on this book? You do need to make these choices, these two choices, in order to start something. Once you learn how to do it, you don't need these choices. You can just make things up. I play a elf sorcerer where I made up like half of his abilities just on the spot. Other people,
Homebrew.
yeah, that's fine.
Well, I didn't know if you wanted to. Okay.
No.
Continue.
And some when I played a game, some of my fellow players, my daughter, Sister Saint, was the game master. They were like, "You're not playing by the rules," and I said, "Well, the game master makes the rules. You don't have to follow every rule." I was having fun with my elf sorcerer, who was half cyborg, by the way. But what happens if you don't want to spend $50 on this? You bought the starter set, you spent $20 or $25 on it. There's no character resource in there. You don't want to spend $50. Sister Saint's going to tell you how to go online so that you can save some money.
Get your nearest device. In my case, a phone. Go to Google and type in D&D Beyond. I don't have to type in the whole thing because I use it so much. Let's see if I can bring this closer. D&D Beyond is a website created by Wizards of the Coast, completely with D&D Beyond, and you can have not all of the rules, but most of the rules. All you have to do is go to a little side tab on the side, hit game rules, and you can find all of the races. My phone wants to load. It will give you all of the races that the Player's Handbook offers, as well as other source books offer, and it will give you, back to game rules. If you go to classes, it will give you all of the classes, as well as the additional Blood Hunter one from Critical Role.
So this is a character sheet. You have your name, character name, your class, and your race. All of this alignment and experience points. We'll talk about that later. I don't even want to waste my time with half of that stuff. You have your abilities here, your proficiency bonus. We'll talk about that. Hit points. That's how much life you have. Speed, initiative. We'll talk about that. Armor class. That's like I talked about difficulty class in the previous video. When somebody's attacking you, your armor class, like say your armor class is 13, they have to score a 13 or higher in order to do damage to you. And then places for traits, spells, equipment, stuff like that. And then you have a back page. So what we're going to do is we're going to start very basic character building. And we're going to choose, the first thing we choose is a race. And the second thing we choose is a
class.
But you don't want to write it on here. You want to get a trusty, old-fashioned notebook paper, and Sister Saint's going to walk you through with these two important choices. We're going to use the phone.
The phone.
Yeah.
phone.
So choose a class.
Okay.
No, race.
So I like to build my characters based off of backstory, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to do a character inspired by Yoda. So I'm going to do small and fierce. So I'm going to be a halfling.
Yoda, a halfling. Okay.
So, D&D Beyond gives me a short description of halflings. I am not going to read that. I don't care right now.
But what kind of stuff is it? Just to give us an overview
it will tell
very
you
quickly.
an overview of the general personality of halflings, where they live.
Yeah.
Any little, I don't know, things.
Yeah, so
that-
like some characters are like tricksters. Some are kind, some are curious, some are healers, some are warriors, and you would write those personality traits down on your character sheet, right?
But you don't have to base your personality or character on what the description says.
Yeah, you can just make up whatever you want. I was a dwarf bard, and it says that if you're going to be a bard, you don't really choose dwarves. So my opening line was, do you remember my opening line?
Something like a dwarf bard, you're saying?
I'm a dwarf bard. I know what you're thinking. What kind of dwarf is a bard? Well, if you spent 100 years being a bodyguard for a bard, you too would learn the tricks and trades of being a bard. So that was like my stupid... Okay, anyway. So you can really... The sky's the limit. You don't have to follow all the rules.
So you'll find the halfling traits, or whatever race you're using. And these are things that each race comes with special abilities designed
Use a
to
pen,
fit
not
each
a
race.
pencil, so that people can see it at home, can see
Okay.
it.
Where is a pen?
It's right here. All right, there you go.
Thank you.
All right. So why don't you put halfling on there?
Okay.
Nice and big and fast. All right. Halfling. Okay.
Okay, halfling. So the first one is your dexterity score increases by 2.
Okay, so let's stop there. Okay, every creature has ability scores. We're going to go over that, but certain races and classes have special ability score increases or modifiers. They're called modifiers. So the dexterity is a +2. Okay?
So I'm going to write +2 dex.
Okay.
Age. It tells you about when they reach adulthood and whatnot. You can come up with your age. That's not too important. Alignment. Alignment's a different thing.
No,
not
go ahead.
Gonna do alignment.
Yeah, just briefly.
Okay, alignment is basically if your character is good or evil, and there's a whole scale. That's a whole other thing probably, but it basically tells you whether or not you're what kind of. I don't know how to explain alignment.
Well, you can be like good neutral, or good chaotic, or bad chaotic. I don't know. It's just you can get into it later on. But we're doing like a Yoda character, so chaotic good. Because obviously Yoda is unpredictable, but good. Okay.
Size. I'm about 3 feet tall, and my size is small. Each I don't know.
There are like 3
race
sizes.
and character.
3 or
There's
4
small, medium, and large.
There are more than 3
So
sizes.
I'm small.
Yeah.
I don't have to write that down. That doesn't matter.
But it does affect your in gameplay. It can affect different things, but it's up to the game master really. The speed tells you how many feet you can move. So if you're dashing, you might be able to move 25 feet or 30 feet.
The smaller you are, usually the not as far you can move. Lucky. This is a special trait that I get with being a halfling, which is when I roll a 1 on an attack roll or saving throw, I can re-roll and use the new roll. So that's pretty cool.
Now you would write that down so you don't forget it. So you put
so
lucky.
I did. I have
So you
lucky.
get and so we're not going to write this down, but you would write down on your notes. You get an extra roll if you roll a 1 on either an attack or a saving throw. So that's pretty cool. What else you got there?
I also have brave and halfling nimbleness. These are all things that come with the halfling traits, which we can get into later. Languages. Usually, everybody can read, speak, and write common. And then another race or language comes with your race. So I can speak common and halfling.
Okay.
And class will give you other abilities to be able to talk in different languages. Now there are different sub-races that come with races. So I can be a Lightfoot halfling.
Okay, stop there real fast. If you choose a sub-race, you're going to see that you get another ability score modifier. So this one, you get a +1 on your charisma if you were to choose to be a Lightfoot halfling. So just for the sake of it, just put charisma +1. We're going to just choose that. We're running out of time here. We're going to try to keep this under 20, but and then you can get stealth. You can read all about that. You can choose another kind of halfling, and it gives you another ability modifier, so on and so forth. Is that it for that?
That seems to be it for race.
Okay, so let's go to, now we have to choose a
class.
So we're in halfling and we can choose a class.
Or class.
Class, yeah.
We're
But we're
going to
be Yoda, so what would Yoda be?
A monk.
Okay. Oh, that's
Punchy,
great.
punchy.
That's really good.
Monks are my favorite. I am in love with
Why
monks.
is that?
Well,
Very
I play. I like to be up close and in combat, and monks are punchy, and my favorite character to play is a monk.
So it talks about creating a monk, and then you have the scale, and this is where you get into other things. So what do we have here?
Let me write monk.
This, by the way, is your level. Remember, we talked about levels before. You have a level. If you're going to play a multi-game, your game master may say, okay, now that you've defeated that boss or that bad guy, you go to second level. So we all start with first level. So we have, the first thing we have is our proficiency bonus.
This I can put right on the character sheet.
Okay.
Your proficiency bonus will go here. And this is what you will add to anything you're proficient in. Any skills or weapons.
Use the pen.
Use the pen.
Okay.
Don't do your character sheets in pen.
Yeah, we're just doing it for
Ever.
You. Okay, so proficiency bonus is +2. That's right here. You can lift the phone to the phone. Lift the phone to the phone.
Oh, the phone to the phone.
Yeah, and then what do we have?
My martial arts die is going to be 1d4, and this I am going to make note of. So.
What's a martial arts die?
Just right. That's
1d4.
really hard.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
A martial arts die is what you can add to any certain attacks and abilities, which will get higher as you level up. 0 key points at level 1. Key points help you, kind of the monk equivalent of spells, basically.
So if you go to second level, the monk has 2 spells that...
2 key points.
Oh, is it like sorcery points?
In a way.
Okay.
You could say that.
All right. Well, I'm sure the book gets into it.
Over here, it gives me features that I acquire at level 1. So I get unarmored defense, which means if I do not have armor, I don't really have to write this down, but I'm going to, my AC will equal...
What's AC?
My armor class, apologies,
okay,
will equal 10 plus my wisdom modifier.
And we're going to talk about that later.
Plus my dexterity modifier.
Okay. All right. So now we have more things here.
Next is hit dice, and this can also go right on the sheet.
Okay.
The hit dice...
Pen, please.
Pen, correct. This feels wrong. The hit dice, 1d8.
Okay, so you already automatically have 8 points as hit. Then you roll the 1d8, right? Or no?
You start with...
Do you start with 8 hit points?
At level 1, you start with 8 plus your Constitution modifier, and that is your beginning hit
These
points.
are your modifiers. Whenever we talk about dexterity, charisma, Constitution, that's this. We're going to fill that out in part 4 of our video. Okay, what else do we have? So 1d8 is our hit dice. We can't put our hit points yet, which is our life, until we fill this out. Okay, each class has a different hit dice. I know, like, barbarians are like 1d12, so they have a higher, like, hit dice. They're more formidable. Okay, what else we got?
Next are our proficiencies. So we are not proficient in any armor, because we're monks and we're awesome. Weapons, we are proficient in simple weapons and short swords.
Now, the proficiency means that's what you prefer. That doesn't mean you have to stick with it, you know? You can, like me, get a cannon arm, right?
Right. However, anything you're proficient in gives you extra damage and attacks.
Okay.
Tools, we can choose one type of artisan's tools or one musical instrument. That's different. Saving throws, this can also go right on the sheet. So we are proficient in strength.
First of all, these are all your saving throws. Okay.
Strength and dexterity.
You fill in the little bubble, or mark your different. Hold it up to the camera. You mark your This is your modifier. Your what is it called? Your ability scores, which we'll get in a minute. But these are your saving throws. You'll have points for each one, but whenever you fill in a bubble, you add what the number is. We'll explain this next video, plus your modifier, your bonus. So the ones you bubble in, you get extra points. That's your proficiency saving throw.
Now they give us skills that we're proficient in, and we can choose 2. So, for the sake of Yoda, I'm going to go acrobatics. Oops. So I
Because of
could
his
be
performance in
extra jumpy
Star
and
Wars
flippy.
Part 2 and 3, I guess.
And religion.
Yeah, so if I'm
Since
gonna hold this
he's
up
all-
here. So you can see that there is a skills. Choose 2 from those different skills. Those skills are, again, right here.
And skills, personally, I base them off my character's personality because I think it depends on how they are
Yeah.
and whatnot. Equipment. That's a different thing, unless you want to go into that.
No, actually, we got to wrap it up. Thank you for joining us. We'll come back with the rest of filling this in, part 4.